Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second part of our 6.84 patch analysis. I'm BDLM with my buddy J4Y, and we are here back to talk about the heroes. If you guys have no idea what the heck is happening, and you missed the first part of the episode, we talked about the gameplay first. You can go back and check that out. This section is going to be for the heroes. The next section is going to be on the items. And you know, Jay, I'm not ever going to let you talk, and I will start by saying that we have some really neat changes to the heroes. Aghanims abound. 19 Aghanims changes. Brand new mechanics added to the game through the Aghanim Scepter. For instance, the Lurker added back to StarCraft 2, now also in Dota 2. Techies' minds will now be immune to All-Seeing. And then Legion Commander will just duel you for the rest of time. A lot of really neat things that we've never really seen before in this game. Mm-hmm. And we get to dive in and talk about them all, from the minute to the more dramatic. So how about you lead us off, man?
How about with the most exciting...
this one makes me want to cry.
Change in the world.
It's not that exciting.
It's not? No. We're starting alphabetical order, right? Just so we're on the same page, right?
Rockets and explosions and fireworks. Well, now, borrowed time. No, go ahead.
Abaddon. Borrowed time can now be cast while disabled. Same rules as Morphling's Morph. So...
Great. So Alchemist. No, I'm sorry.
I mean, there's not actually too much to say. It's just he has a better chance to survive in fights, I guess, and that's a positive. So good for him.
Interesting. I want to say one other thing too that I find really interesting about this patch in general. There were a lot of hero changes that also came with nerfs, which we're about to see with the next hero, which I think is... It makes me think that this patch has sort of been in the labs for a long time. There's a lot of art that had to be made for this as well. I guess not a lot, but some pictures had to be doodled, right? And there are a lot of really interesting buffs and nerfs that come together in a package that really makes me think that this one's been, in R&D for a decent amount of time. So that just makes me even more excited for it, because I really do want to see how balanced it comes out. Some things seem kind of strong. Obviously, this is a game breaker with Abaddon.
Yes, it was.
But
not. Do you want me to go on and say it?
Go ahead.
Okay. So there's a few changes to this this hero here. Unstable concoction countdown.
Alchemist, that is, because you didn't actually say that part.
Well, who else is unstable concoction? Come
who else
on.
Could it be?
No, fine. Alchemist. Also, alphabetical order, or whatever. All right. It's going to be a long night. Can now be seen by enemies. Just pause and let that soak in for a second. All right. Now has an area targeting cursor.
Cool.
Oh, I thought you were going to say buff or something. Okay. Greenhill's Greed now grants 4 times gold bounty from runes.
Very cool.
That's nice. A nice little interaction there with that passive. And then another one of the bigger ones here. Alchemists can now cast Aghanim Scepter to directly grant any allied hero all Aghanim Scepter bonuses as a buff, the hero upgrade, and the stat upgrade. The Scepter is consumed in the process. Multiple instances of this buff do not stack. Alchemist can target himself as well. So there's probably some confusion. I know I was a little confused at first, because the first thing I did when I read this, I frantically Googled Alchemist Aghanims to see what his current Aghanims upgrade is, because I'm like, he can give it to himself. What was his Aghanims in the first place? No, it doesn't do anything. It'll just be the stats. But obviously, this has so many changes. I have a lot to say, but I'm curious what you have to say first. So what do you think? Do you want to start from top to bottom? Do you want to just dive right into that Aghanims? Where do you want to go? Feel free.
The bounty thing is really neat. We've seen changes come in previously to the game that sort of give us some unique interactions, and there are actually some other ones too later on where you see there's just like, oh, well, we'll add this to the game, and then here's a neat little hero interaction. I think this one's really cool. Alchemist is a not used hero like at all, right? But it's just neat. And when you go and you look at the Aghanim Scepter bonus as well, which is just mind-boggling, and I can't wait to talk about that one. But you see, of course, the unstable concoction. You kind of got to show that time to enemies. You can sort of ballpark it with the sound, but now you can sort of just be stunned through to make sure that you stun yourself, which kind of sucks. So that's sort of like the blade balancing that I was talking about earlier, but I think it really is because this Aghanim thing's kind of ridiculous.
Kind of is an understatement, in my opinion. Now, the direction I wanted to take this is I think his support role got enhanced a million times over by these changes. I completely looked at him as a support when I read these patch notes. Obviously, the gaining all that gold from bounty from runes, he's going to be able to just get a lot of gold as a 4 slot. He's going to this Aghanim's thing. Obviously, the way you probably should be looking at it is that he's helping his allies out. You know, he's building this Aghanim's, which it costs 4,200 gold. Obviously, a lot of carries or other characters, heroes, are not going to. You know, they might want it, but they don't want to put that 4,200 investment necessarily because it's not their best item, or maybe they need to go Orchid or Blink or something else, and it's got to be on the back burner. Now this Alchemist, who has always been a good farmer slash, like we kind of talked about earlier in our first part of this episode, with Grievel's Greed, he's able to get a lot of gold really quickly. So, you know, if he can just farm up an Aghanims and use it on one of these other characters, it's obviously going to be insanely beneficial. Now, obviously, that takes away net worth from Alchemist himself. So as a support hero, maybe he's becomes a little weaker than someone else because he doesn't have those stats. He's kind of being selfless. But that's, I guess, where his ultimates comes into play, is it kind of makes him that tankier, bigger person. So that way he doesn't have to have these items to still contribute to the fights with the acid spray and the unstable concoction. And I was kind of going off what Erica was saying in the chat. It saves carries him having to build it. So let's say, for example, Juggernaut. His Aghanims is pretty good. You know, it's not good enough that you'll see him build it anymore in this meta, but it's not a bad item. Well, now we can just have the Alchemist build it, use it on the Juggernaut. He'll gain stats, which are nice, and he'll gain this nice buff to his Omni Slash, and he didn't even have to pay the 4,200 gold investment. So I just think it's such a very neat idea. Is that kind of the direction you were thinking as well?
No, not at all, which I think is great.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think everything you just said is totally legit. What is also interesting, too, is that this is really the first sort of, like, net worth transitioning that we're able to see in the game. But then also, when you look at how gold gets done now, where if you are weaker and you kill a more valuable target, that where you are in the list of net worth determines what you get from that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You're actually getting more if you're a part of a kill, because let's say you souped up somebody else and now you both went and killed somebody. Well, then now you're getting an even bigger benefit from it. Mm-hmm. But what I think, this reminded me of... yay, another StarCraft reference, timing attacks, where you would go, there was something that you would get that would just all at once be a dramatic boost. So Zealots kill Zerglings in 3 hits until you get your +1 damage upgrade, and then it's 2 hits. So you're able to kill things a lot faster, and there were strategies that were built around as soon as this happens, snap, we go, and it's a huge power increase. So here's the point of the story. Silencer on your team decides that he's going to go Refresher Orb while your Alchemist is going for an Aghanim Scepter. Those two things come online at the same time, and you've gone from, oh, Global Silence sucks, to Global Silence is now doing damage to you, siphoning your mana. I'm going to refresh it and drop it again on you. And in a relatively short window of time, these 2 items come online that just skyrocket your team ahead and their potential. So this is just like a Pandora's box of...
Yes, it is.
Timing-oriented builds that we really haven't gotten to see anything like before because of this ability to just transition the stats and transition the abilities to somebody else.
God, and that just makes me, like, I love this discussion already because it's making me, like, this is, I truly think, what Alchemist was, like, born to do, created to do. He gets this net worth, he ramps up. Now, normally as a carry role, he plateaus like an anti-mage really quickly because he'll get 6 slotted and then he's kind of done. You know, what else is he going to do? But with this, now he has potential to assist his team. And not only this, we'll get into items. This is an item you can also buy and help your allies out with. So there's other investments in gold that will benefit your team. It's not just all about yourself. And I think that's awesome to kind of be able to distribute the wealth, like you said. So Alchemist, gives us over as a buff to someone else, and now just he could technically farm another one if he wants. He could do whatever he wants, and it's a really interesting dynamic to I think plays to his strengths all along. I think this is just really amplifying how he can contribute to his team, and it's a little sad to me that he doesn't actually benefit from the item itself. But I guess that is the way he benefits, is that he is just being selfless and passing it along to others.
Yeah,
I don't even know what I'd want it to do if it buffed him in any kind of way, to be honest. Like, hide the countdown from enemies again? Like, I don't know, to be honest. But
he throws the gnome off of his shoulder at the enemy, and the gnome beats them senselessly.
Yes.
No, this is a good sign of things to come with just there being... And again, to go back to just how crazy this patch is, this is something completely new to the game. This is your... one of, I guess, your 2 7th item slots that sort of get activated through this patch. The ability to stack on additional stats to yourself than you would be able to with just a 6-item normal backpack. So, very cool. And, with a little bit that we've talked about, and just being able to transition stats or being able to do these timing attacks like Silencer, I mean, there are just so many combinations, and it's going to be really great to see what different teams are able to employ. Absolutely.
So that's pretty. I think that's actually an interesting way to get this started off. Now to be uninteresting again. It's just to briefly. It's like one. Like they're alternating apparently. But yeah, Ancient Apparition, just the Chilling Touch buff can now be removed by clicking on the buff icon above the health bar. So okay, nice. What's it, a quality of life change, I guess you could say.
If you
ever want to get rid of the buff.
I was so excited. Here we are again. You told me you were skipping this one earlier.
No, I said I'd go by quick and you wouldn't even be able to respond because I'm just going to say it.
Okay, well.
Axe. Axe. So obviously, I'm going to kind of almost pause in a way, like every time we get to a meta-heavy hero, because we should do a little bit of more in-depth analysis on them. The Berserker's Call cast point increased from 0.3 to 0.4. Counter Helix now triggers when attacks land rather than when they start. This also affects Centaur War Runner's Return and Timbersaw's reactive armor. Similar mechanic. And Culling Blade movement and attack speed bonuses reduced from 40 to 30%. Thoughts?
Much needed changes to Axe. I mean, he's sort of been getting pushed down a little bit. I honestly don't want Axe to leave altogether. He's a neat hero. But this seems totally reasonable. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we just kept piling on buffs to Axe until he eventually started getting picked. And I think this is fairly reasonable. I think the changes to Return and Reactive Armor and Counter Helix make sense.
Yeah.
Not really sure why they worked the other way in the first place. It's, again, just one of those things that I think just streamlines the game a little bit, because somebody new goes, well, why is he doing this? I didn't even attack, and go, oh, because it's sort of the animation. What? Like, why does that make any sense? So I think it just makes more logical sense, and, tiny changes. But, there's another hero down the line where I really want to press how much cast point really matters. So, 0.3 to 0.4 doesn't really sound like a whole lot, but it's going to be something you feel, I promise.
Oh, absolutely. And that's obviously his bread and butter. That's part of his combo. You've got to get that Berserker's Call off with the taunt in order to ultimately spin enough to do that Culling Blade at the end and get the kill. So, that 0.1 second can definitely make a difference, especially at some pro levels where these people have split-second reaction times. That 0.1 second with no lag could definitely make or break the difference there. So, it isn't something to just kind of scoff at. It is something to... And as far as the Counter Helix, I believe they probably just simply ported in with Dota 1 how it worked in that game. And then they finally, since it is their game, with Dota 2, they're like, yeah, that really doesn't make any sense at all. And we should probably have this be more of a logical thing. It doesn't... I feel like he's still going to do the same thing with this difference. All it is just kind of maybe if you're running away from him or something, it might benefit you more if like a rage creep's attacking him or something. But all in all, it's going to be a similar thought. And that Calling Blade buff is just so good. That's a nice way to finish him off. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to be enough to take him out either, though. Yay or nay?
If he comes out, it's not because of what was done to him. It's because of what was done to other people. Mm-hmm. There's I think going to be a lot of movement in what is viable, and I think we've seen arguably with this last patch, but I think we've seen as a whole more heroes become viable, be seen as viable, and I think that this patch is a continuation of that. Mm-hmm. So, we had where for Starlayer 12, the finals, the actual finals, not just saying the LAN finals in general, you would think that Phantom Lancer was the biggest hero in the meta. He was in every single draft, showed himself to be a core hero throughout all the games. Troll completely went through one of the games, didn't get banned or picked at all. So while we've seen some instances where it seems like Sniper the Troll, they're everything, and this is all that Dota 2 is right now, other teams can play without it at all, or they value other things completely differently. So, I think it really just comes down to what people decide they like and how much they're willing to mess around. But I think that Axe could come out because of this and because of the way that other heroes have been buffed.
Okay, I like it. I think he's going to be staying around at least for a while. But yeah, I can definitely understand your points as well. Bane got the Brain Sap mana cost reduced at all ranks by 25, and the units affected by Nightmare no longer provide vision. However, Nightmare End can now be used by Bane to end all other existing nightmares. So, first of all, just on the first point, Brain Sap mana cost, that always costed a truckload of mana. So it's actually kind of nice to see that get a little bit reduced. Obviously, the Nightmare End is just a nice... Obviously, it can help you in so many ways. You don't have to worry about that spell to trigger it off. You don't have to worry about the enemy being the one that removes it. You kind of control the fate of your nightmare. So, while not huge changes made to them, I think these are pretty interesting still.
Yeah, it's nice that you don't have to afflict yourself with the nightmare to be able to take it off. You can just be like, well, whatever. Any nightmare on anybody, just remove it. I think the vision thing is actually really neat. Because if you're on the other side of the board and you see somebody get nightmare, they lose their vision, you're like, well, we know there's a Bane there. What else is there? Maybe another hero runs up real fast, and all of a sudden you're like, you sort of have to wonder if you want to engage to try to save an ally because they get nightmared. Whereas now it's like, well, whatever, we know it's just him. I think that's really neat, and Bane is a hero that we don't see at all. So these are, I think, small changes, debatably. I mean, the vision thing, I think, is potentially kind of big. But again, a little push towards viability, which I definitely appreciate. And like you said, Brain Sap costs bajillion mana, so it's kind of nice to see it come down a little bit to help make him a little bit more viable.
Absolutely. The Bat Rider was definitely some nice big changes, sizable, I have to say. The Flame Break damage changed from an instant amount of damage to instead 50 per second over 1 through 4 seconds, and Firefly damage is reduced by 10 at each rank. So changing that instant throws out the bottle explosion for damage now is going to be throws out the bottle explosion, and over time you will feel that same. And actually, it is less damage at all ranks too on top of that. So I'd say a pretty big hit to Bat Rider. What do you think?
I agree. And again, we're going to get to a hero where you're just like, why would you want Bat Rider when you can turn your whole team into Bat Rider? Mm-hmm. It's I don't know. He's been around for a long time. Let's be honest. If he fell out completely for a little bit, who would be that upset? Not me. Maybe Funnick.
Funnick would be sad. Ice would be a little sad. There'd be a few players, but no, it's definitely, I think, another, once again, a good approach. You don't want to really affect his ultimate too much. I think it's where it should be. Firefly, just lowering the damage, I guess obviously helps, so he doesn't get as many solo kills per chance, or it's harder to. He also doesn't farm the jungle as quickly as he used to with both of these changes. So, he will be feeling more of that kind of punishment with these changes. But it's not, at the end of the day, if you need that role, if you need that initiator who's going to pull out the enemy, he's so unique and so niche that he will still get picked up. And enough good players will make this hero continue to work. But I think this may definitely impact his pick rate for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was struggling to see some play sometimes, and I think this reduction in damage kind of makes it a harder sell to want to pick him up. But we'll see. I mean, like you said, it's a niche. So those niche heroes, they'll always have at least some value in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Will the Blink Dagger come up in 7 minutes, or 8 minutes? That might be one of the big changes there instead. Might be 10 or 12. So, but speaking on a hero that does a similar kind of idea, Beastmaster, base damage increased by 4, Wild Axe cast point from 0.5 to 0.4, and the Call of the Wild board attack point from 0.633 to 0.5. So some nice little buffs to Beastmaster there.
Yeah, I like these. I mean, I just like Beastmaster a lot. I'd love to see more of him. He's gotten some nice reworks, some nice changes. The base damage ones are always nice, and it'd be really cool if we got to see him come back to being a mid hero. Where I'll take offlaner, I'll take whatever. To be honest, so I like this, and hopefully it leads to more of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just you kind of talked about the cast points. It's another thing where it's not a huge number, but yet it definitely will impact. It's more of a feel thing. I feel like when you are playing the hero, you'll notice that kind of thing a lot more. So yeah, definitely interesting. Bloodsicka, that's just his name. We have to just all accept it. Mm-hmm. The Thirst bonus scale from 100 to 25% health instead of 100 to 0%. And then the Thirst vision threshold from 30 health to 25% health. What do you think about that?
I'm fine with it. I mean, why do you need to be extra lethal when they're at 1% health? Mm-hmm. So I think these are fine. I mean, I actually got to see a Bloodseeker game not that long ago. So he's, again, I think one of these fringe heroes that still struggles to find exactly where you want to see him, how you want to see him. I still think it'd be cool to see him played as a support as opposed to a core, but another one of those Ice Frog nudges in the right direction.
I was gonna say, as the way I'm reading this, and I believe I'm correct on this front, but you may correct me if I'm not. But the bonuses were not affected or changed. However, it just takes less percentage of health to gain those bonuses. Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I had to kind of speak it through myself, and maybe some other people had to also kind of, wait, what does that exactly mean? So yes, it is just purely buffs for this hero, making him gain those bonuses a lot easier, and also lowering that threshold, is just a different change as well. So
yeah, so balancing out the blade there, but
exactly.
I think the Bounty Hunter ones are really interesting. The int grow from 1.4 to 2. That's pretty dramatic. I like that one a lot. Shriek and Toss damage. This one I thought was really weird, and I'm curious to see what you think about this one. We've mentioned Bounty Hunter before as being a hero that has a really weird scaling interaction with his abilities. So if you look at the way the ranks of Shriek and Toss worked before, from 1 to 2 would double. From 100 to 200. 2 to 3 would then only be 50. And then 3 to 4 is 75.
So weird.
Why? But anyway, this has been normalized, and actually we see that he gets about 50 damage at all ranks ish, up to 375 damage on the Shriek and Toss. The cast range has actually been reduced, however. Mm-hmm. The mana cost has gone up at rank 1 and brought down a little bit at rank 4. And there's also been, if you remember because it's been forever since you've seen a Bounty Hunter, I can only imagine, the track Shriek and Toss Bounce has been given a longer range, and this one I find actually really cool. The track now shows how much gold the enemy is carrying in their debuff tooltip. Yet another completely unique mechanic brought to Dota 2.
How troll. I don't know. How Bounty Hunter, I guess I should say. But And it's not like it doesn't fit in with the character or his lore or what he's going after. I mean, he is looking to get the biggest bounty, and if someone he finds out has more gold, maybe that would influence him. But as far as the shriek and toss damage is concerned, thank you for normalizing it. Obviously it was more like, hey, that value point at number 2. Okay, it made it a little different, but overall it makes it nice. That is a pretty big deal. I think lowering the range from 650 to 400. That's pretty significant, to be honest. And obviously, Shriek and Toss, a lot of times, is how these bounty hunters will finish off a kill or possibly get in range to, So it's kind of a nice, decent-sized change. The mana cost increasing, obviously, is not completely offset by any means with the intelligence growth, but it kind of goes hand in hand there. It's not too much of a big deal. The bounce range... Honestly, I haven't even played Bounty Hunter since he gained that change, so I don't know how difficult it was to get that bounce going. I can only imagine it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but probably a neat concept. It's nice to get 300 more on that. But I don't know. The last point there, how much gold the enemy is carrying, it's nice. There's no question of that. You can obviously use it multiple ways. You find out a guy is hoarding his gold for a big item or something. You're obviously can okay, we need to hunt him down because we get a big kill on him. He's got all that maybe unreliable gold. It's going to drop down and it's going to be bad for him. You'll actually that's probably the only way I can think of where it's really beneficial. But at the end of the day, it's just another statistic, another helpful bit of information that maybe helps you decide what exactly is going on the other team. So. Oh no, I don't want to say he was buffed or nerfed from these changes. I guess he was just changed in different ways. I guess overall it almost feels like a slight buff, but then again, like I said, that range on the Shriek and Toss getting reduced, it just kind of makes it feel like he was just kind of hit from both sides here. So
yeah, I mean, a silver lining, right? He loses 250 off the initial cast, but then gains 300 on the bounce.
Right.
So, like you said, the mana cost increase kind of balanced out a bit by the ink growth, at least for the later part of the game once you start getting some items that interact with your mana regeneration. But yeah, I mean, I think that the track change is really interesting just for that reason. You go okay, well, this person's sitting on an ogre club and they have 1,300 gold. If we wait, then they might have another part for their BKB, and we want to stop them from getting that. We should do something sooner. Right. This hero has 300 gold. We should stop him before he is able to, get a Radiance online. I think that is just an interesting concept, and they're really the only way to look at the opposing team's gold. Also, hey, like you're saying, he's a bounty hunter, right? And you're going to be getting a bonus based on the enemy person's net worth. So now you go man, this guy is 4 slot and he's sitting on 2K. This guy, he needs to die. So I think that's just neat. I think a lot of the offlaners have been affected in this patch in fairly sizable ways. For instance, the Bat Rider. Now we're looking at Bounty Hunter. We're going to look at some other ones as well. So I'm really kind of curious to see how the offlane in particular shakes out after all these changes.
Mm-hmm. I am also interested. Let's get to a few more of them, shall we?
I too am interested.
I too have an uncle. I'm just gonna skip Brewmaster. Not a big deal. There, you happy? You happy? I skipped one. Okay. Everyone's gonna be like, "What was the Brewmaster change, guys? I'm lost." Go find it in the patch notes.
Bounty on Primal Spirits no longer there.
Great. That was probably a complete sentence. Bristleback, speaking of offlaners possibly, movement speed reduced from 295 to 290. And the viscous nasal goo.
Yep.
I was going to say vicious. It's not. Armor reduction, rescale, I can read, at a 3rd grade level. Rescaled from 1122 per stack to 1.4, 1.8, 2.2. So kind of actually weird, but you could say another normalization of an ability. It increases now 0.4 across the board per rank instead of nothing from 1 to 2 and nothing from 3 to 4. So kind of almost doing away or taking a step back from that value point in certain things, and more of like just saying, hey, over time, it's going to give you more benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like these? Well, obviously the movement speed. They're two different things. So, I mean, do you like both of them?
They're fine. I think the nasal goo change goes hand in hand with the fact that armor value is now showed to the decimal place by hovering over the tool tip for each character. So, fine. A little bit of a buff at the last rank for the nasal goo. The warpath movement speed I think is fine. So, I don't really think this is a hero that necessarily needs to be running around super quick. Not that 295 is super quick, but obviously movement speed is very important and it hurts, but at the same time, this is definitely one of those heroes that makes up for it in the long run. So,
yeah. The Brood Mother incapacitating bite is no longer a unique attack modifier. Okay, that seems like too many uses of attack there, but that's fine. Insatiable Hunger attack damage increased at its last two ranks by a little bit. So taking away the unique attack modifier on incapacitating bite, I think is really nice. I think that it's kind of the direction a lot of heroes have been going. Like when we saw Ursa, for example, or not anti-mage, but there's been a few. I'm blanking. But the point is,
what you're talking about.
There's heroes that have had changes, and now they're different. No, but getting rid of that, so now Broodmother can go one of those unique attack modifiers. I don't know, Scotty Lifesteal, for example. No, that would be really. I don't know why you would do that on this hero, but feel free. Why not? Exactly. But pretty cool, and obviously giving a little bit more attack damage to those later ranks. I mean, not by any means a huge difference, but just making her that much more viable, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting that these keep vanishing. I'm really wondering.
Except one that I'm so pissed about, and I can't wait to get into later. Anyways. Sorry.
What?
Oh, yeah, we'll get there.
All right. So I'm curious to see how many of these wind up being left at the end of the day. I feel like the ones that we've seen get changed, they wind up either like not having a huge impact, or they become kind of interesting. So I want to see how this shakes out. I'm fine with the hero getting a wider item pool. So I don't like Broodmother. I never will like Broodmother. It's just a hero that I dislike how it plays, but power to her.
More power, even. You want to talk about Central War Runner?
I really don't, because this is probably the most broken change of the whole thing.
Didn't he start broken, and they're like, "Oh, we done goofed. Let's scale that back. Let's scale that back."
Maybe they didn't test the patch. No, it's we'll see. Okay, I'm not gonna just give up hope now. I'll put the glasses back on and read it out for you.
Oh my
Added Aghanim Scepter upgrade to Centaur. Oh, that's fun. I wonder what it is. It's that Stampede reduces all incoming damage by 70% and allows allies to run through obstructions, trees, cliffs, etc., and destroys trees.
Trees, they die.
So, the way it reads, and I wanted to double check this, but pretty sure this is how it functions, is that everyone affected by Stampede is given 70% reduction to incoming damage. Would also like to say...
Imagine a Kunkka boat, but it doesn't ever hit you later.
Yeah, I'd like to say that this is clearly a patch that's going to come with a B, C, and a D. E, F. No,
Q.
Some of these things are kind of dramatic, and they'll probably will get tweaked, but this one just seems so crazy to me, especially because, okay, you're a Centaur, Jay. I know you are, deep down in your heart. Yes. You get your Blink Dagger, you could go Blade Mail, cool. But now, it's kind of like, why would you do that if you can just make people run up cliffs? I mean...
Because your alchemist is gonna make it for you. You don't even have to worry about it. No. I got a problem here.
Mm-hmm. Is it that you love... I'm sorry, go ahead.
They love me, I can't help it. But, yeah, my issue is that it does both of these things. I don't like that at all. It's not only reducing damage by 70%, but now you can run through obstructions like trees and cliffs. I mean, I guess just the obstruction thing seems weak reason to just build Nogginims, but you're able to traverse terrain, right? And reduce all this damage. All this damage, like 70%, is enormous. Now, granted, I guess if I take a step back from the soapbox and say, okay, a lot of times, how is this stampede used? To retreat or to initiate? Am I right? It's not usually used in the middle of a fight. So, in that regard, if you're saying it, comparing it that way, it doesn't have nearly as much of an impact. However, you get this Oghinims. Maybe you don't use it that way anymore. Maybe now you are holding it in case, let's say, your mid player gets ganked. Bat Rider ultied. Okay, Stampede. They're not going to be able to take him down. He's safe during this duration. I mean, it kind of changes almost the dynamic of this ultimate in itself. So I don't like it. I agree with you. Why do they like breaking this hero so much? I just don't understand.
Here's my question, Jay.
Shoot.
Will you go back through all my VODs and all the times that Centaur and his entire team just run into the Roche pit from the other side of the opening? Can you just have like the music like or like what's the song that's playing when Mufasa gets run over in the stampede? Spoiler alert. Can I just get that in like every single VOD against Centaur? Because it's like, what is this? There are great abuses with the obstruction, like you said.
Matata?
And then that's probably the one. That's probably the one.
JRPina in the chat says, do you guys really think Oggs will be built on Centaur very much? Because he doesn't.
Here's the thing. That's where I was kind of trying to go with the blade mail thing. What are you losing from not going blade mail? You can't reflect the damage. What is wrong with just getting tankier or stats durable on this hero? Mm-hmm. I mean, as we're going to go to later, there are great items that can be picked up instead of stats. But when you're getting the ability to walk terrain and then also to absorb damage, like you said, you're charging in. So maybe 2 seconds of this 3.75 seconds is just used walking. Maybe the other part of it, you've blinked in, you've stunned, so you're maybe not even taking a whole lot of damage at this point. That's from how we've seen it now, but I totally think that there's potential for this to just now be used in defensive situations, because the other thing to remember too is this is global. It's not like the team has to be together charging in together. This could be your one hero's off farm and split pushing, and all of a sudden they just start taking a lot of heat, so you pop your ultimate, they run down a cliff, they just ate like Zeus's ultimate, and they're home free. So it's I really don't see why you wouldn't see this. I at least would say that it's definitely an option.
Yeah.
We've come across some Aghanim Scepter bonuses that we thought were pretty strong in the past, and they didn't come out in the wash. This one, though, I feel like is at least going to be a viable option.
Oh, yeah.
If not a quite viable option. I'm not going to say that like Centaur is going to be building this every game, but
I will.
Man, it's pretty nice.
Like I said, though, not every game, because Alchemist will build it sometimes for him.
Of course.
I kind of have two more little notes here about it. They're not really notes; they're in my mind. The first thing is we're talking about Oghinims and how it's providing stats. Strength. Let's see. Obviously, good. Agility, armor, initiator, never hurts. And he's gotten these nerfs in the past couple patches for mana cost for like Hoof Stomp and that's pretty much his only spell that costs mana. For Hoof Stomp, for example,
half of them.
And so more mana, more int. That's fine. Doesn't hurt. And then like you said, the health and mana pull from Point Booster. So it's all around. It's a good item on almost every single hero, anyways. Just from purely a stats perspective, it's like having a nice ulti orb, if you will, with some added bonuses. So. A very expensive ulti orb, but in regards to the Aghanim Scepter, you ready for the J4Y build for victory?
Never, but
it does begin with the Aghanims.
Weird. Strange.
It ends with a refresher orb. Think about it. Just think about it. So 3.75 seconds, right? Multiply that times 2. All right, that is 7.5. I did the math. I didn't even need a calculator that time.
That was good.
Be proud.
I was proud of you.
So now you have 7.5 seconds of 70% reduced damage, 100% move speed slow, obviously the max speed, and that extra damage. I mean, where do you go wrong? Where do you go wrong with this kind of buildup?
I feel like that's a bit of wasted mana regeneration.
Like Tidehunter needs the mana regeneration.
At least
Like
Tidehunter
Magnus
has
needs
3
the mana
abilities.
regeneration. Actually, he kind of does.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank-
Okay, don't focus on the mana regeneration. You're not building the ghouls here, okay?
Big picture, okay?
Jeez,
Big
yeah,
picture.
you gotta look bigger than that. I'm just saying, if these other heroes, we're seeing refresh orbs getting picked up left and right. Let's be honest. I'm just saying. I think we're gonna see it. I think we're going to see it. It's going to be seen.
I think you're gonna do it.
I might have to be the one that that does it so we can see it. But I don't know. It feels right. It does.
You wanna know what else feels right?
What?
Chaos Knight. Finally.
We're in the
Finally.
seas, boys. Don't worry.
Poor guy. Chaos Bolt minimum damage from 1 at rank 1 to 75. 50 up to 100, 75 up to 125. At the last rank gains 50 damage as well. To go up to 150, I just love this so much.
Normalization. Here we are.
It doesn't. Okay, Chaos Knight was relevant so long ago. Like, let's give him 75 damage at rank 1. Like, I'm okay with this. I really am.
1 minimum damage. Just 1.
Because seriously, why would you pick this hero if you have that potential? Like, Reality Rift is strong, great. The Sun, fine. But now that we're also talking about moving to a meta that's going to be about picking up kills, I think just the Chaos Bolt damage isn't really all that he's getting. I think he gets some stuff just in that the meta seems to make more sense for a hero like Chaos Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited about that. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Hey, remember how they buff Phantasm so you have a chance to be better? So, I mean, he's already been kind of buffed. So, I don't know. I like this too. Not that it's bad for just the stun purpose alone. But, yes, I mean, adding the damage to it does make it nice. I mean, as you know, though, the typical build for this hero is maxing both the Chaos Bolt and the Reality Rift all the way up to level 8. And then going back maybe for that crit and the Phantasm. So either way, you're only going to have that rank 1 for a little while. But still, it's nice to at least give that level 1 pressure. Like maybe even in a tri-lane, it's a lot more threatening to have him in there to get that damage output as well. So, I don't know. It's fine. I like it. Not a huge buff, but he's a good guy.
How far down are we dropping? Are we going right to my girl?
You know what? No, I'm going to mention Clockwork because
Oh, God.
you said this is the one you specifically didn't want to mention. And I want to because I remember it's probably completely irrelevant too.
It is.
But the rocket flare speed from 1500 to 1750. Okay, so it gets a little faster, right? The reason I think that this is interesting to me, there was a guy that put out a guide that was able to pull neutral camp stacks with the rocket flare if he timed it just right. He's going to have to completely redo that math. He's messed up. He's done. I mean, pack it up.
Listen,
That's why I wanted to bring this up.
If people have the free time to figure out that they can kill Ancients and Roshan at the same time Necrolite, I think this guy is probably in that same boat. Hasn't seen the sun in a while. He just is really interested in pulling with the rocket flare. You know, it's fine. That's like one of those feelsy things that, you know, is going to be really obnoxious change to try to deal with. And
it's not only the pulling the neutrals, but everyone that plays that hero, especially the ones that play it a lot, you are kind of used to that travel speed. And I mean, it's definitely going to be something you have to just practice again. You know, we're going to see Bulba on that hero for who knows how long until he gets used to it again. But at the end of the day, it is a buff. It's a weird buff because you're going to get thrown off for a while, but it is, in the long run, a buff. So anyways, We can go to your misses now. That's fine.
Crystal Maiden.
We
Crystal
actually had
Nova.
a viewer question about this too.
Yes.
So, um,
Affecting how relevant she might be now.
exactly.
Crystal Nova movement speed and attack speed slow from 30 to 20, scaling up to 50. Crystal Nova slow from 3.5 going up to 5 is now just 4.5. Frostbite cooldown has been reduced from 10 going to 7, 9 going to 6. And Freezing Field cooldown 150, 120, 90 to 90.
Can I just say one thing?
You can say a lot of things.
Okay. The first thing I want to say, can you please start taking that ulti before level 10 now?
I'll consider it.
God.
I'll consider it. I like all of these. I think, as mentioned earlier, Crystal Maiden is in that unfortunate boat of like, oh, she's so good early, but then she falls off. And this whole patch, I think, is really dedicated to, I think, making supports and the interaction between players on the team. I think I want to say that Merlini mentioned it's almost sort of a restructuring of the traditional like 1 through 5, and that almost the gap between these heroes becomes a lot smaller, and it really is about you supporting those carries and not giving things up just to let them have it. It really is like you are just contributing to their goodwill, which I just like a lot better anyway. We're going to see that when we get to the items especially. But I think Crystal Maiden is a hero that really benefits from that. I mean, now you're more lethal in team fights. You still have your Frostbite to be able to, run around the jungle, to stun in the early game, or to root, I guess I should say. And you have this loss of the movement speed slow in the beginning, but it goes all the way up to 50 attack and movement speed slow. So there's some additional scaling into the late game. And then, of course, the Crystal Nova slow just gets normalized. So even though at rank 1, your Crystal Nova is not slowing as much, it has now a longer duration. So I think Crystal Maiden stays lethal in the early part of the game, maintains her ability to sort of drop into the jungle. Yeah, some of these creeps are worth a little bit less now, but can still run in there for the experience and for the gold.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as you're saying, the ultimate that I'm kind of always like, but I could get a point in anything else. Even stats. Might actually go for the freezing field now. Because at the end of the day, it just paints a target on your back anyway. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna use this 150-second cooldown just so I can get stunned. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it will give her an opportunity. I'm not saying she's quite on the levels of with the supports we're seeing right now, but she definitely has more potential. I mean, she's always going to kind of serve that role that she has. She's going to have she's going to have the Brilliance Aura, obviously. She's going to be deadly in a lane if she's ever needed to gank certain heroes or whatnot. That ultimate is just as lethal as I've always loved it. But I think I'm not going to say the main reason he fell off, but I think one of the reasons definitely was when the double rune was introduced, allowing both mids to kind of, people get access to more bottles, more regeneration. Kind of made the mana thing not as relevant, but, at the end of the day, she'll still serve her purpose. And I like you said, she's got more tools, she's got more ways to kind of get to that late game and be still effective in some kind of capacity. Not necessarily in like a lion capacity where he's got a hex and a lion stun and all this other stuff, but in a different kind of fashion. And there's items, like you said too, that I think are going to assist heroes like her and other supports in general for becoming more effective as the game progresses.
I think too, I mean, just to talk about her being irrelevant before, it's you want this hero that is going to get you a lead quicker so that you could potentially lose it, rubber band, and then you're admitting that this hero is going to fall off later. So, when we get to the point that we want to push high ground, you're telling me that this hero is almost useless. I think, again, with the shift in the meta, I think that we're going to see with sort of returning to a lot of these really in-your-face, aggressive, kill-oriented heroes, Crystal Maiden is going to find a place to come back, if not to be the number one support in the game, but I can definitely see a place for her in the future.
So to answer your question, yes.
I think so. I think she has some potential now. Certainly, her chances are a lot higher now than they were before. Put it that way.
Can we talk about how Darkseer's vacuum cooldown did not get affected this patch?
I almost wanted again, like the vacuum cooldown has been increased by 0. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But what he did get, so the ion shell duration was increased from 20 to 25 seconds. The Wall of Replica, his ultimate, of course, damage dealt by illusions from 70, 80, 90 to 60, 75, 90. So the first couple ranks takes a little bit or do a little less damage. But the Wall of Replica duration went from 15, 30, 45 to just 45 at all ranks. Triple that time of the rank 1, just to make an example. And the mana cost also was reduced at all ranks. So obviously adding that Ion Shell duration, nice for the creeps, nice for conserving mana if you're farming the jungle. And then the Wall of Replica, while they do a little bit less damage, and this is only at the earlier ranks, that getting that 45-second duration just makes such a presence wherever you are, giving that much more incentive to put a point in it early. You know, even as early as maybe 6 or 7, depending on how the game's going. Are you pushing? Are you defending tower? Do you need that wall? Because 45 seconds at a tower is a substantial amount of time to keep the pressure off or on, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different Wall of Replica, but, you know, if you've been paying attention to the scene for a long time, you know, you'll remember that, you know, the Darkseer Wall was a big part of defending these base breaks and, you know, going up against the Dragon Knight and being paired with him. And, you know, that era of professional Dota, you know, when Darkseer was super relevant, I think this change to the duration is big, just in the sense of, like you're saying, with not only defending, but even just to try to zone people out to make it a little bit more difficult for them to try to jump in. Now, the damage dealt by the illusions is reduced at like rank 1 and rank 2, but you know, just having it out there longer to make teams have to second guess if they can come in to engage or to defend, I think is nice. And, you know, as much as we hated seeing this guy in the past, he's been out of it for a while, so this is a change that I can kind of get behind. Mm-hmm. And you know, even the Ion Shell, you know, the Bat Rider, oh, it's so great because you can be in the off lane, but then you get pushed out, so go to the jungle. You know, Darkseer can even just sort of throw out the Ion Shells and go sort of mess around in the woods. You know, I'm just thinking for like Dire side, safe lane, you know, if he was up there with an aggressive tri-lane on his team. You know, he can just sort of throw one out, let it go down the lane as far as it can, you know, maybe get a little bit more out of it than he could before, while also being in the jungle. So I'm fine with this.
No, absolutely. I think this is great. And especially, possibly, we don't know where the meta is exactly going, but if it does go in that more of a death ball kind of direction, who better to stop a death ball, or at least go against it, than Darkseer? He's always been, like you were kind of alluding to in the past, with Dragon Knights, both on your team or against him. You know, these strong heroes that are up in your face. Well, put that wall down. Now their team has to deal with these illusions as well. So, yeah, I feel like he's always had a strong place when there's a death ball meta around, and I think he might actually get picked up a little bit more as we see that Bat Rider nerf, because you talked about offlanes. Another offlaner here who's actually gaining buffs instead of getting nerfed. I think this could start opening a couple doors for him. So.
Yeah, I mean, another hero, too, that I feel like is going to wind up coming back, the Death Prophet. I mean, Exorcism Spirit count goes from 412.21 to 613.21. Also, some item synergy that I think is worth mentioning is going to come into play with this Death Prophet. You know, this is another change that really makes me think that the aggro push kill is coming back in full force because, you know, this hero is just, you know, an expert at pushing on the timings of the ultimate being up and being able to contribute in the team fights as well because of the damage that's able to come from that. I actually really have my eyes on this hero because I also think that there's some great synergy with one of the new items in particular. So
I'm going to make a mental note to bring up Death Prophet when we discuss. I know the item you're talking about, and I have something to say about it too. So we'll get there. Remind me to say my thing about it, okay?
Hey, say your thing.
Remind me later. So we'll skip over Disruptor 2. Very minor. God, I hate you sometimes. Dragon Knight. speaking of which, he's kind of been on part of our conversation, so we might as well bring him up because he did gain some nice little buffs here. The Breathe Fire now also reduces base damage by 20 through 35% for 8 seconds. Corrosive Breath damage is now lethal, and this is not the only thing. We'll get into it later, but Orb of Venom also can be lethal.
Thank God, because why?
Why? If that one damage ticks to kill you, you should die. I agree with that completely.
Bring out your dead. I'm feeling better. It's like
I'm not quite dead yet, but you should be. You're poisoned. Why is that not killing you? But and then the Elder Dragon Form's splash attack damage percentage radius from 100 to 250 to 150 to 300, so a little bit increased actually. The cooldown, just to kind of before you get into it, Breathe Fire is a 12-second cooldown with an 8-second duration on that reduced base damage. So obviously this is, I'd say, a pretty heavy / nice buff. It adds also another dimension. I've kind of brought that up with previous heroes or previous things. Adding another kind of aspect to the hero. Do you think this is definitely going to put him back in the scene?
I think it gives him some additional viability. You know, he was kind of just like I have to sit and farm hero for the middle lane. And, you know, base damage is obviously something that is going to be more relevant in the beginning of the game as opposed to later. Mm-hmm. So I think it helps him in the lane a lot, and it makes him less Magnus-esque, where you sort of just have to sit there and you bottle and you use your spells to get yourself some last hits. But other than that, you're kind of just hanging out. So, I think these are neat changes. The Corrosive, the Orb of Venom changes make way too much sense to me, and I'm totally okay with them. Mm-hmm. And, Dragon Knight is a hero that I feel like could be... some teams could be reminded that he does have a place, and Splash Cannon seems to be the one that they want to push here with the Elder Dragon form radius increase. So I'm very cool with this.
I'm on the Dragon Knight train. I don't think he's going to be in every game by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But I think, like you said, now teams have him as a resource, and he kind of, like I was saying before, adds more than just a splash cannon. He actually can do a little bit more than that. So I like him as well. Earth Spirit, so we'll bring up his changes. Not that either of us, by any stretch of the imagination, are either Earth Spirit players or know much at all about the hero.
Here's my thing. I frankly, and this is maybe mean-spirited, I frankly don't care. Until this hero comes into Captain's Mode, I just really don't care. Because this is probably the hero that has been around the longest and has taken the longest to come into Captain's Mode and has had the most dramatic, dramatic changes to his kit and the adjustments of his numbers and what abilities do what. So, obviously you have to change him and see how he feels. And then, maybe there'll be one more patch where he gets stuff changed and added to Captain's Mode. But, some of these I feel like make a ton of sense. Like fixed Hex not interrupting rolling boulder if cast during the initial 0.6 seconds of ramp up. Yeah, all right, cool. That makes sense. These changes I'll just read them out. Boulder smash damage from 125, now scaling 50 to 200. Grip mana cost from 75 to 100. Grip damage 50 up to 275, now 50 to 200. And the ultimate magnetize can now be dispelled. Reeling in the hero, maybe he's a patch closer now to being...
Big maybe. I mean, obviously, it's gonna just keep taking time. This hero is so different than. Imagine if they just introduced Invoker last year. Like, how long would it take to get that hero right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that's going to take a lot of iterations, a lot of tweaks. Now, thankfully, these are definitely more on the side of tweaks than just changes overall. Like, they're not swapping what Grip and Boulder Smash do, for example. Like, this is just tweaking. I definitely think he's on his way to becoming a Captain's Mode hero, but he's definitely not there yet. I'm with you, though. I'm not... I mean, besides the fact that I'm not an Earth Spirit player, I agree. These changes are more just getting him closer, but it's not on the point where we need to really analyze or figure out what does that exactly mean, at least from our podcast perspective. So Elder Titan, just small little buffs, cooldown reduction, and channel time reduction on Echo Stomp. Another offlaner to mention. I mean, he's been gone. I don't know, on vacation, doing something. Do you think he's got a place in this kind of deathball-y or new meta that might come out?
Well, I had let's say a 3.5 hour car ride with Bonk each way, so it was really like 7 hours.
Oh boy.
I feel like this is
so
where this
sorry.
conversation
That's
came up.
kidding.
Oh, we were just talking about Elder Titan, and I don't even think it was in reference to me just saying that one of my things for this old meta was just that making people vulnerable versus tanking up, and you would think that this would be a hero that would be sort of all about that and just stripping away people's natural defenses so that you can capitalize and sort of add to just the massive amount of damage that you want to be tossing out. But somehow it hasn't made it, just from being crushed from nerfs. So I feel like it's with the times changing. I don't know if we'll see him or not, but I still don't miss him. But I might be able to stand him.
Yeah, he's fine. I agree with you. This is kind of more of a, I think, a hero that does rely on that synergy with the other team, wearing down the enemy's defenses and then kind of capitalizing on it. Whereas the current heroes are building Scotty and just tanking up. And I don't know. I guess I could see it go either way, but we'll see if he makes a presence. And if he does, we'll be glad to discuss that when he does make that introduction again. Enchantress, here we go. One of the two picture people at least made it, although Chen didn't get any changes, so I guess we can't talk about him much. But the untouchable attack slow was increased at all ranks. Enchant can now be cast on controlled units to refresh the enchant duration, and Impetus now pierces spell immunity because we need everything to pierce spell immunity. So now we have another thing that does.
Pretty okay with this because, similar to Crystal Maiden, hero that is known to fall off dramatically in the late game because of
BKB.
Well, yeah, BKB. Once they go spell immune, what are you gonna do? So I just find it hilarious that Untouchable just keeps getting buffed and buffed and buffed. Enchant being cast on controlled units to refresh is a quality of life change that I'm pretty on board with. If you decide that you just want to keep an alpha wolf, fine. I mean, should you really have to run into the jungle and go find another one and sacrifice your presence on the map because you just ran out of time? If this is what you want to spend your enchant on, I know, right? I mean, you pay your rent, you keep the property. So I think this is fine, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, quality of life thing, but cool. I like it.
Yep, I think it's all around a good thing. So we'll see if that allows her to come back in. The Enigma, I thought this was pretty interesting. So first of all, the Midnight Pulse cast point improved from 0.3 to 0.2. That actually helps a lot if you're trying to do a combo. Just making that even quicker. Every little bit helps when you're trying to get that down before your black hole. The black hole now does a constant amount of damage per second, regardless of proximity to the center, and the mana cost was slightly reduced in its last two ranks. I think that second part, though, is kind of interesting. It always depended on how close they were to the center of the black hole was how much damage you were dealing. So you're always like, okay, black hole, sometimes you don't even level it up. Is the damage increase really worth it? Is it, how much are we putting out with that? Now that it's just constant, I think that's actually really nice. It kind of adds to his kill potential as a hero. It makes him more useful. You don't have to depend on Midnight Pulse to do a lot of damage with your ultimate. I think in general, it's just it's a nice change and a nice buff for him.
I think it just makes sense because who is running around with Enigma like, oh man, I'm gonna get you right in the middle and it's gonna suck for you? You're clearly about catching as many people as possible. So the fact that you did more damage in the center, I guess, is fine for, physicists, and maybe they like that more. I don't know. But for me personally, it's like that's not what the ability is for, and it's almost sort of again, one of these things like, why does that need to be a part of it when it's just much simpler to make it constant damage? And then even it just sort of having it the other way almost makes it sound like you would want to be more interested in catching somebody in the center as opposed to catching more people. So I think this is just fine. It makes more sense. Enigma obviously could look to go for a refresh orb a little bit faster if you really wanted to because of the reduction in a black hole mana cost. So it's only by 50, but at the last rank. But hey, every little bit helps.
That synergy with the Alchemist Aghanim, so it's going to be A-OK.
There you go.
Gyrocopter, quick little changes, but I think still kind of worth pointing out. The Rocket Barrage no longer has a cast point, previously had 0.3, and the Call Down Missile 2, slow duration from 3 to 4. I think you are probably in love with that first change.
This is the stupidest change ever. I mean, if you don't think this matters, just remember that Leshrac used to be a thing.
He will be again.
He will be again. The South will rise again.
Whoa!
And really the add of the cast time to Diabolic Edict helped break Leshrac. That one thing helped break Leshrac. We were talking about Gyrocopter and the slasher builds not too long ago, and we were sort of mentioning it's like, well, all these abilities, they need some sort of setup, even Rocket Barrage, because you can't really easily chase somebody down if they're at that max range. You really have to be on top of them in the first place. Then you have your cast point, and then that makes some space, but you're still fine, so you can get a kill. Gyrocopter, I think, again, as we mentioned a little bit with Slasher, he gets all these buffs to his abilities, not to his ability to right-click, to cleave down teams. Even the Call Down Missile 2 slow duration going from 3 to 4, I like a lot, and I really do like the push for this hero to go into another realm other than to just be a cleave bot. And I really think that if not now, by the time this hero does come into the meta game, he's going to really, I think, feel just so dramatically different than what he did before, and I think it's going to be neat and a refreshing change.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think completely removing a cast point on a spell is definitely night and day, like a huge
ridiculous.
Difference. It is.
Ridiculous.
We were talking about how 0.1 makes a difference in feel. 0.3, removing it completely, he's going to be attacking, moving, and casting this spell at the same time. It's going to be pretty impressive. So, I'm interested to see if that does impact his pick rate as well. I don't like Huskar. Do you want to talk about him?
Inner Vitality buffs, fine.
Yeah.
It's
just an aspect of him that really has never been the issue with Huskar, in my opinion, anyways. It's just...
I will say kill-oriented hero, so... he's really struggled even with sort of the gimmicky lineups to make himself known, but I guess slightly more favorable weather for him now.
Synergy with Wraith King, new Aghanim, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I never thought about that one. I guess when we get there, we can sort of bring it up again. But neat, sure. Invoker, I think, gets some really cool stuff. Oh, yeah. And this is interesting too because this hero popped up in the finals for Starletter 12. The Asian team is playing with a much more diverse pool. But they have not given up on the old wizard. I guess he's really not that old. Middle-aged wizard. Int gain goes from 2.5 to 3.2, because why not? Invoke no longer triggers cooldown if it only swaps ability slots. So if you just feel like, I really like my Sunstrike on E instead of W, you can make that happen. Or whatever the buttons are.
I love how you're not an Invoker player.
I'm not.
It's very apparent.
You know what I mean.
It's fine. Yes.
You can swap your abilities around just for feels. Sunstrike cooldown from 30 to 25. And this one's pretty neat. Max Deafening Blast, Quaswex, and Exort all the way to the floor is now a non-targetable circular wave released in every direction around Invoker. So Invoker's the Blink Daggers already. So I think just... adds a unique feature to this maxed out level, and I almost kind of wish there were more of these. To be honest with you, now that I'm reading them,
like once you're maxed out, things. Well, you can't make them too powerful though. So if all these abilities gain throw 3 meteors down or something, God knows what the hell this guy would do. I think that's cool. I'm not actually sure why they wanted to do that because I feel like that spell was in a fine place. But like we were kind of talking about with other heroes, especially maybe they're adding more dimensions. Maybe they're adding more depth to heroes. They want to kind of change the way you think about or look at a hero. And obviously, max level means your max level of Quas West Sword means your max level. So it's not like a large part of the game generally that you're going to have this high impact ability, you know. But late game, it does give him a new tool. That's going to be nice. And this is another one of those heroes that I want to bring up when we talk about items because he just, oh God, does he synergize so well with that item when we get there. So remind me of two things now. I hope you remember the first one still because I already forgot. So we'll get there.
King Huskar, I gotcha.
Thanks. IO, that's just a luxury life. Relocate, double click, now teleports to fountain. That's nice. So you don't have to worry about clicking the mini map. I guess that's good.
Yeah.
Jakiro. The base strength increased by 1. His macro power durations increased, and his area of effect is slightly increased. So this hero that's obviously fallen from graces, not really a very common support these days. But getting a little more oomph out of his macro power, and just a little bit more tankiness because that's what this hero needs. So, I mean, just nice for him, I guess.
Yeah. And then the Juggernaut changes. I mean, this hero also interacted really heavily with Yule Scepter, so the fact that in a Yule's oriented patch he was having a bad time should tell you something. Also, again, looking at heroes that have historically been a part of pushing lineups because of Liquid Fire. We could even just see him come back because of something like that, because now the pushing is more attractive. Mm-hmm. Juggernaut, Blade Fury cooldown from 30 at rank 1 up to 42 at rank 1. Scaling down to 18 still. Blade Fury has the same spell immunity on cast and spell behavior, blah, blah, blah. Basically, he won't be removing positive buffs on himself from spinning. Healing ward movement speed goes from 450 to 420. Omni Slash no longer mini stuns on cast. And yeah, there you go. There's some clapping. And using items and abilities in Omni Slash no longer requires a facing direction, which is
cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the heroes, once again, that very meta prevalent. That I wanted to focus on a bit. So obviously you start the Blade Fury. Raising that cooldown to early rank is huge, in my opinion. Very big. Now, granted, okay, huge might be an overstatement. It definitely will impact the hero, though. The typical build, if you've been watching competitive Dota, is the kind of like the anti-mage build, where they'll go the 1-1-1 alt. They'll get stats. They'll get tankier. They'll get the mana. They'll be good to go. They'll farm the jungle with the Mask Madness and everything, and they'll just be pretty much a wrecking machine later on. So they generally don't put the points in that Blade Fury until a bit later into the game. But if you now go that build, you're getting punished a lot more for not having that Blade Fury off cooldown. So I think this is actually a really interesting approach, making him invest into his abilities instead of just those stats to kind of get the quicker farm going. So really nice change there.
Yeah, stats and crit, and then eventually you come back for this when really it should be, in my opinion, the Blade Fury, and the Omni Slash, and the fact that those sort of give you a certain level of immunity or immunity. I think are really what made this hero interesting in the first place, and the fact that it's gotten so far away from that is a lot less interesting. And 42 seconds is long enough to die to the Blade Fury, and then get people to TP in, and then gank him before he can go Magic Communicant. So I think this is a really nice change and a good way to go about trying to break him out of going that stats-heavy build.
Yeah, and I mean, you would sometimes not see that till like very late in the game. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, going down that 12 seconds was okay, but it wasn't substantial. But now that it's 24 seconds, it's starting to become a lot more noticeable. So, yeah, I think this was a great... The no longer mini stun on cast is just... I'm very happy about that. Being able to interrupt things with his ultimate was just very... It was a big nuisance, to say the least. And so I was glad to see that as well. Using the item's abilities no longer requires facing direction. I don't see many Dagon Juggernauts. I don't see many. I guess there's some Blink Juggernauts, but not very common. So that one's not going to play too much into effect, but I guess that's just nice for him. So yeah, I mean, overall, you could say he got some nerfs here. Once again, I don't think any of these nerfs are going to make him fall off the scene in any regard, but they are going to impact the playstyle and the builds of this hero for sure.
Mm-hmm. Keeper of Light.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, manly cooldown from 16 all rank 16 to 10. Oh my god, my favorite change too, Jay. I'm sure that's what you're talking about. There's this other crazy thing like Chakra Magic now adds a buff that reduces the cooldown of the next spell. Its target cast by 1 up to 4 seconds. Buff lasts 12 seconds, no big deal, right? Separate Illuminate heal percentage from 75 to 100%. Moving on to Kunkka. Am I right?
Probably. What in the world?
Another new mechanic to the game.
Yeah.
BT dubs. And this one I think is pretty big. I mean, did you have anything that stood out to you in particular with this, or were you just like, what cooldown reduction?
I was trying to think of the combos that this would be like really strong on. I mean, I didn't off the top of my head. I couldn't think of a whole ton of them, but you know, at the end of the day, it's the next spell by up to 4 seconds at the max rank. So it's not like 20% or something. Like it's not something ridiculous, but it definitely will help your team continue to cast the spells, keep the fight going, progressing, and I just think it's so neat, keeping up with all of that. So I don't know. Did you think of any like cool ideas of where this is going to really stand out for this hero?
I mean, there are some longer cooldown major abilities when you look at like Fissure, okay, 15, and you're able to shave almost a third off. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the ones that actually already have really short cooldowns that are going to benefit the most from this. And of course, I feel like Kotal has, traditionally been a part of lineups that have been about either turtling or being able to just roll down the front of enemy bases. So, okay, well, what if we look at a Death Prophet who has a Crypt Swarm that has an 8-second cooldown? Well, there's half, so she's just going to toss 2 of those out. How about a Necrophos who's Death Pulsing? Well, with that buff, you'd be able to Death Pulse, and then 1 second later, Death Pulse again. How about one more? Pugno. With the Nether Blast, it's a 1.5 second cooldown between blasts after using the Chakra Magic, and that hero in particular, really hungry for the mana, being able to really take advantage of that. Just like all-out aggression is going to be possible by some of these heroes that are able to churn out a lot of damage. Sure, mana is an issue, but not when you're getting chakra'd. So I think that's really the main focus of this buff, and I think that, again, is here to bring us some more high-octane Dota.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to keep the fuel for the fire. I agree completely. So we'll see, I'm sure, soon enough in some of our games or different things, some of those combos that really stand out at the end of the day for that. I'm okay with skipping Kunkka if you are. Just got a couple little buffs to Torrent and X marks the spot.
Doesn't have to turn for Torrent. I think that's just cool because it's kind of obvious otherwise.
That is nice.
Even X marks the spot, 80 to 50 mana, it's a pretty big percentage, and especially when you go and look at Kunkka that really are trying to be more about the LOL X marks the spot tricks. I think that's just kind of neat, and we might have to find a really particular team that likes it or a really particular setup for it, but I do think it's a cool one.
Yeah,
cool
I guess the no longer turning is actually bigger than I was kind of thinking originally because he obviously has a visual cue when he's casting the spell, which obviously you can also fake if you're good enough about it. But, the direction gives people that much more of a hint of where you're going with it. So I guess no longer changing that direction will definitely help you maybe possibly land more torrents down the path here. Here we go, Legion Commander, one of those Aghanim things you brought up right away. So the Moment of Courage counterattack chance is just 25% across the board from 16 to 22. The Lifesteal A nice big buff in the early ranks, so it's 2080. Now it's 55 to 85. However, the cooldown got a nice little nerf from 0.9 at all ranks to 2.7 down to 0.9. And then, of course, at Ognims, where the duel lasts until either Legion Commander or her target dies, or if the duelists are ever more than 2,000 range apart.
Buff to Disruptor.
Disruptor, IO, whoever.
These are really interesting changes, I think, for the same reason that the Centaur Ognims is as well. Legion Commander, definitely a hero that would wind up going for the Blade Mail after the Blink Dagger to, try to get that kill to happen. Well, even if you are in a situation where you're not able to snowball out of control, which is sort of, I think, what this hero has been, I guess, pigeonholed into doing because of the interaction with Duel. Now it's sort of like, well, I sort of just have to outlast people at best, coordinate with my team, outlast people, and I'll get the damage. So instead of going for the Blade Mail, you can go for the Ognims. You can rely on your team a little bit more to either save you or to apply the damage instead of you.
Right.
And then you can really look to just have a really long duration crowd control where they have to sort of try to use abilities, like Relocate, like Glimpse, to try to break this out or to just provide enough support. So I think this is actually really neat and a sort of reclass of what the hero is capable of doing.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a very interesting concept. Once again, that is definitely an Ognims that will not be built every game on this hero by any means, but it definitely has potential to be used, and can't go wrong with all those stats. So yeah, it's some nice changes all around. The Shrek making his comeback again, maybe not. Goes move speed from 315 to 320. God, he's already so fast. What a horseman! But now 5 faster. The Lightning Storm cast point seeming to be a little theme coming throughout here, but from 0.7 to 0.6, and the Lightning Slow duration from 0.75 to 0.7 all the way up to 1. So I would call that just a buff all around. So they're really trying. They're really trying.
I like I really enjoyed the Lightning Storm slow change when that happens, and so I'm glad that it's sort of that's kind of a point that they want to push a little bit. And I think it's always like, I can't imagine they make it any longer than a second. I don't think it really would ever get to that.
Oh, it shouldn't.
Yeah, because it's honestly pretty dramatic. If you can get a chain Lightning Storm off on people, it can feel a lot stronger than it just looks, and you're just like, oh, 1 second slow. So I like it. 320 is kind of outrageous. But again, this is a hero.
Fast.
Yeah, but unlike Gyrocopter, this is a hero that still does have that cast point on Edict. So while you might be able to, in the long run, chase people down, it is something that you sort of have to take into account, is that you will have that cast time, so that movement speed helps a little bit.
I feel like his early game presence is just so strong. Like, he does so much nuking damage early on. He's very quick, especially if you get like some boots on this hero right away. Like, he is going to be a huge nuisance, I feel like. And I don't know. If the meta does go back into more of a pushy kind of meta, it definitely can give him some more potential with his Diabolic Edict. So I don't know. I definitely don't think this is obviously going to put him on the map completely, but it's every little bit helps. So I like seeing a buff to my friend in blue there. Speaking of friends in blue, wow, that transition just perfect, huh?
Beautiful,
delicious. Lich got Ice Armor cast range from 800 all the way to 1,000, and Chain Frost projectile speed from 675 to 750. So small little changes here. As you know from a previous patch, Ice Armor can be cast on towers as well. But really, I think these are just nice little extra buffs on top. The armor's always been a very strong thing to have in fights, and the Chain Frost making that bounce that much faster makes it that much more deadly. Obviously, it can bounce before you can react, and really do a lot of damage. So little things to help him out as well.
Yeah, the projectile speed, I think, is a nice one, because it is really hard to sort of make an effective Chain Frost without a team to support. that endeavor. So, getting just a little bit more of the ball in your court, I guess, to sort of control your own destiny is very nice. This is nuts. Just when we get here, this little paragraph for Lifestealer, which I like this hero a lot. Race car Lifestealer. Like every hero that just gets super popular, eventually you get tired of him. But I kind of start to miss him. Feast now considered as normal bonus damage, which means it can crit and you can cleave off of it. Open wounds lifesteal increase from 15 up to 30 to just 50%. Keep in mind that the open wounds is something that's applied to your anybody attacking that target.
Yep.
So that's pretty dramatic, even
Yes.
just beyond the 20% jump. I mean, there is a lot of potential here. And then, of course, added the Aghanim Scepter.
Every hero, come on, you get one. Everyone gets an Oghanims.
Grants Assimilate. You basically turned into one of those like Russian dolls, and you're just everybody's inside of everybody. It's a really awkward party to show up too late, let me tell you. But Assimilate allows Lifestealer to target an allied hero and swallow them, allowing them to hide inside of Lifestealer. Any healing Lifestealer receives is shared with the assimilated hero. Assimilated hero can release itself at any time by clicking on the buff icon to erupt outward and deal even 300 damage to enemies within 700 area of effect. If Lifestealer dies or he assimilates another hero, the current assimilated hero will automatically exit, and then issuing any order with your hero after a few seconds after being assimilated will take you out. This is
the dirtiest paragraph ever written. If Barry White read that slowly, just start looking at the words, and just the words themselves are so. I have to be like a kid right now because it's like you started it first of all with the late to the party conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go ahead and mention a couple keywords here. Swallow, release itself, automatically exit. I mean, I don't know. It was written in such a way that it's just my mind could not. Anyways.
I don't know if I linked it to you or not, but I think this was a paragraph written by Gods. It was a game that he cast where he was talking about a Lifestealer Nature's Prophet duo in the middle of a fight, and he goes, Nature's Prophet tells Lifestealer, come inside me, and everyone just erupts into laughter, co-casters and all. And there was really no hope for casting the rest of the fight. They just gave up. Because there's no coming back from that.
No, there's not.
Real world implications. Pretty cool.
Very good. Now you got a double bomb now. As if one bomb wasn't scary enough.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can have two for the price of one. I mean, essentially, as you were describing it, and just to kind of give people more of like a very broad strokes here. So yeah, he's able to actually take a hero inside of him. Oh, let there be light! Sorry, the video has changed us completely here. Yes, he's able to get the hero inside of him, and then he can actually go into another hero with that hero inside of him. So, like you said with the Russian doll effect, you have a couple layers here, like an onion, and you just peel them when the hero gets to the middle of the fight, and everyone starts crying. It's actually a perfect analogy there because it really is. It's powerful, and we've talked about how Aghanim Scepter is just a good all-around item. This is another hero perfectly fine for. You get health, you get mana, the strength for damage, the agility for armor and attack speed. It's not a terrible item. Now, granted, I would probably never say, yeah, we need to rush this or first item on Lifestealer, because that's not true. Armlet's still amazing on this hero. Sage and Yasha still amazing on this hero. There's other items that are going to be really good still, but I can absolutely see a potential for this Aghanim's upgrade on this hero. I think it has some depth. It adds, once again, I don't know how many times I'm going to say dimension, but it adds another dimension to the hero if you so choose to go this path.
Yeah, man, I don't know. This open wounds thing is pretty crazy. It almost sort of reminds me of like
level
Wraith
1
King.
Roches.
What?
Say level 1 Roches. No.
Oh. No, just like Wraith King, where you like think of him as a carry until you see him as a support, really because of one ability.
You just stop it right now with that talk.
Because,
No.
I mean, the ability to eat your carry and then go magic immune and then lifesteal your way back to glory is an interesting concept.
This
I'm
is this
This
is
is spitballing here. This is patch
this is
talk.
worse than Aghanim's refresher on Centaur. Is all I have to say right now.
I'm just saying, you have this massive amount of life steal and a slow coming out from the open wounds. Just, just, just spitballing here.
I'm glad. No, you know what? We're the podcast that does that.
Listen,
Okay.
we're 2.5 hours in. I'm allowed to say whatever the heck I want at this point.
You've already read
Everyone's
this paragraph
asleep.
out loud, so all the children are already you have to
Everyone's
be
asleep
shunned
by
away.
now. The fact that we're still awake, it's really just a miracle.
Oh, and we're only in the L, and we got items. So yeah,
I
agreed.
mean, it might be worth discussing another break in the VOD, I think. But
No, we're powering through the heroes.
oh jeez.
I'm committed.
Okay, well, Lena Aghanim Scepter no longer increases range. Fine with me. That she was kind of out of control, in my opinion, anyway. So
She's still
interesting.
just as
This
strong. That didn't really, honestly, change too much.
honestly, the biggest nerf to Lena, and spoiler alert, I'm going to jump ahead to the items because I think it is just that crazy an interaction, is the fact that now Yule's Scepter actually costs 175 mana, up from 75 mana.
Huge.
So, that is really, I think, the nerf to try to break Lena, and this is just kind of the icing. Because really, punching through BKB is, I think, sufficient. And the increased damage, for the Aghanims.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Let's go on Lone Druid. I think this one is really cool too because everyone gets an Aghanims, right? So this is just a quick note, but True Form is no longer removed on death. The same applies for Medusa's Split Shot Mana Shield and Troll Warlord's Berserker Rage. So essentially, just because you die, you don't lose that buff. It's just kept on. The Battle Cry armor and damage is increased, and then he gains the Aghanim Scepter. So this allows the Spirit Bear to attack at any range from Lone Druid and prevents the Spirit Bear from dying if Lone Druid dies. You're going to start playing him again. That's what's probably going to happen in the near future.
It might. Well, so here's the thing, and this is something that I was going to save for later, but I feel like it's worth bringing up now. I'm really curious to see how Midas really interacts with this patch, because I think you're going to be seeing a lot more. Almost similar to how it was before. You just get this burst of gold, and you're just like, I'll go for Midas, and try to build up for later. I guess you would be sacrificing fight potential, but at the same time, a lot of the items that people are going to be looking to go for now are kind of expensive, and a lot of these Aghanim Scepter buffs are pretty neat. So if you were able to sort of work a farm item into Lone Druid that wasn't just like a Maelstrom or something that you could actually fight with, if it was something like a Midas, and you were able to get yourself to an Aghanim Scepter, what I think this really gives you, I think people have sort of not thought it through completely. Mm-hmm. You really get to split push with Lone Druid. You can be somewhere else completely, and your bear could be in another lane and actually be attacking, not just sitting there with a Radiance burn. He could actually be doing something. Not that I'm saying that is like crazy broken strong, that all of a sudden we're going to see Aghanims on Lone Druids, but the tank ability for the Lone Druid himself is kind of nice, but it's almost like he would need another item on himself and not the bear. So, it's an interesting concept, but it's going to be interesting to see if there is any real impact from this, and I'm going to lean towards probably not.
Debatable. I mean, obviously, this is another instance, in my opinion, where it's not going to be an item that's rushed by any stretch of the imagination. He needs to get his core items on that bear before it even... Because, you rush that Aghanims, well, the bear still doesn't do any damage yet, or it doesn't attack fast or move fast. So, getting those other items are definitely very important. But I could definitely see this as a mid-game item. And you're actually pointing out with that split push. I mean, yeah, no longer just Radiance Burn able to do it. Now he can actually go into the base or into the towers and start wailing on them while the rest of you are in a different lane doing some kind of push. And you can always just recall them if you need to get them back to your lane. I mean, it's actually a pretty interesting idea. I also really like the second part where it prevents Spirit Bear from dying if Lone Druid dies. I mean, that doesn't happen all the time, but it definitely can be the case where they just focus down Lone Druid, not his bear, and you've just casted that spell, and now when you respawn, you don't have a bear for like a full minute or something. So it definitely is another nice perk to that Ognim. So I think this was a really cool idea and a good one for this hero.
Yeah, I mean the battle cry damage increasing is cool. The battle cry armor increase is cool. But I think the true form is no longer removed on death is actually
That's
more.
the biggest one of all the not removed, in my opinion.
Yes, and this is really for, in my opinion, for getting the Aegis the Immortal. You don't have that transformation time if you come back. If you die, your bear still stays up, which is nice, but you come back as regular Lone Druid and you're like, oh, holy crap, let me put my suit on. And then, you're transforming and people are just beating the crap out of you while you're trying to do it. And then, of course, if you just get outrun, then your bear can't do anything, and it's just this whole awkward situation. But now, on death, you come back in the true form. It's like a really nice change, makes a lot of sense, and like you said, I think it's the biggest of the heroes where the change is listed.
Yeah. Luna. So the base armor is increased by 1, and Eclipse per unit cap increased from 4 to 5. But the improved Ognim Scepter allows Eclipse to be cast on an area within 2,500 range. Grants obstructed vision of that area, and can also target any allied unit to center Eclipse on their location, even while moving. You can double click or target Luna as well. So, kind of changing once again the dynamic. Obviously, on this hero, you would never build this item. It really didn't serve a purpose compared to just. It was so much better just to enhance her right-click damage that getting this Ognims was always a waste of time. Now, I'm not saying this is like, oh, now we need to go Ognims every game, because that is probably by far the case. Or not the case, I should say. By far the case. But it definitely is cool. Once again, dimensions. I'm in like the 8th dimension now, because we are changing it up here. Like the Ognims are, instead of just like saying, your spell's a little better now, it's saying, your spell now can do this, or it has this potential. It's kind of changing what your hero is capable of instead of just purely making it better. So I really like the change. I'm not saying it's strong by any means, but I think it's neat.
This might be one of the bigger contenders for the Alchemist Aghanims, because this hero, I mean, as you can see with the base armor, struggles with staying alive because of the short attack range. Not even necessarily for the extra ability, which is really nice to sort of get some additional magic damage on top of the physical you're throwing out. But just to even get the stats transplanted to you for that 7th item, I think is actually pretty important. And while all of the Aghanim Scepters we've been reading would be great to have thrown onto another hero, this one almost seems like a major focus of like why that is an interesting addition to Alchemist, to be able to give a hero like Luna, who struggles a little bit with their survivability, that extra tank ability, and that extra damage as well.
And casting it on an allied unit, put it on your, let's say, Centaur Roar on with Blink. He'll cast it on him, he blinks in the middle of the team, now he has Eclipse going on around him. I mean, it's definitely it's a nice little change there too. So I think people might mess up and forget to double click it if they're trying to gag someone. Like, I could totally see that happening. But at the end of the day, it's a neat little change there. Medusa, we already talked about. Meepo, the Geostrike damage slightly increased, but the Divide We Stand, the ultimate, no longer causes Meepo to respawn 20% faster. So remember how they increased that to, I think, the 30, and now it's just gone. Do you have any inklings why they did that?
My thing would be why. Okay, I'm going to be making another Heroes of the Storm reference later, so you can just accept this one as well. There is a hero in Heroes of the Storm that is sort of about just dying quickly and respawning faster. His name is Murky. Everyone hates him, but Meepo is not this hero, or actually Lost Vikings would be a better comparison, having reduced death time because you have these multiple little dudes. in that game, it's not as big of a deal. Like it really isn't that you're dying and then you just come back faster. Cool, you just get back on the map. In a game like Dota 2, the fact that you come back faster just means that you're alone. Like I don't really see where you get killed by yourself, and you now need to come back to the map faster. Especially at like higher level play, I feel like that's not the case.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's interesting that that gets just completely removed. Obviously, the Geostrike damage is something that is additive because of your multiple amiibos. But it's interesting that that does get completely removed.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure the reasoning behind it, but you're going to definitely see less of it for sure, because I think that's a pretty decent size nerf to the hero. The Marana was just kind of a luxury thing, or a quality of life, so that the Starstorm, the spell's second hit range got increased, and the second hit now strikes the unit closest to Marana instead of it being random. So there's actually another spell, I believe, that interacts the same way, which we might see down the road. But
Tony.
Tony the Tiger, Tiny. It's just making it easier to kind of ensure that second hit goes on the hero you want it on. So just a nice little, I'd say, a buff, if anything, there.
To both of these, I like getting rid of the pseudo random.
Yep.
I just don't see the point of having it. So this is rewarding you for being better positioned.
Yeah.
In both cases. So
Exactly.
it just makes sense.
Perfect description.
I know.
Since you described lifesteal, you might as well do Morphling.
Adaptive Strike now has 1150 speed projectile, as opposed to just being like, boot.
What's E-Blades? Do we remember? Is it like...
Nope.
Okay. I'll look that up, but
Some sort of oyster shucker, I do believe.
feel free to go on to the important part here, though.
Well, I think that one is actually pretty huge.
Oh,
but
no, okay.
Yeah, no, yeah. You misspoke. No. Added Aghanim Scepter upgrade to Morphling grants new ability Hybrid, allowing Morphling to target an ally, turning himself into a hybrid illusion, removing the Morphling himself. The hybrid illusion can cast non-ultimate abilities and has your original attributes. Lasts 20 seconds. When the duration ends or the hybrid dies, your hero emerges, which cannot come out prematurely, and this is on a 140-second cooldown, 600 cast range, 200 mana cost, blah, blah, blah. Note, ability is not available while you have a replicate living.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, are the Morphling. So this obviously impacts me a little bit in my other HOTS reference of the day. But
Great.
you, for playing Morphling Dota 2, how do you feel about this? Both of these changes.
Let me just say, E-Blade is 1200. So put that in perspective. It's a little bit less than the current E-Blade projectile speed. So now you have a better idea of how fast that travels. It's definitely actually nice, and has a lot to do, I think, with the way Morphling's been played in the recent meta. He's been a lot of times either support or off lane, having a lot of that strength morph and used as a stun bot, essentially, with that adaptive strike. So to give that kind of a projectile, I don't know why I'm using letters, but I will. It can be dodged now. B, it's noticeable, so there's some items coming down the road where you can kind of put something on to help reverse the tide of the fight or whatever. But it's interesting that they decided to do that to that spell. So anyways, with the Aghanim Scepter, though, very interesting. I like the way it is. Now, this is going to be one of those Aghanims once again, where I'm not 100% sure how frequently it'll be bought. I mean, I feel like the E-Blade is just so critical on this hero that, I don't know where you're going to put the Aghanims in your build. It could maybe be a third, fourth item or something like that, but it definitely, obviously he likes stats. He's always liked strength and agility items, and it helps for casting all his spells as well. So not like that's such a bad item for him by any means. But being able... I like it in the sense of survivability too. Because when you make this this hybrid illusion, it doesn't matter what your current health is. It matters about what you're making an illusion of. So you're essentially extending your life by creating this illusion. And also... you can definitely fake out a lot of people. It's going to be uh, tanky. It's only 20 seconds, which obviously is a big difference from his replicate at the later ranks, especially. But I definitely could foresee some nice uses of it. Go ahead. You want to make your HOTS reference here? I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah, I will. Well, one, I think I hate shoddy Morphling. I don't like it. It just sort of reminds me of like Tinker and just blowing people up, annihilating them. So I think too, even for just the agility builds on Morphling, I just like that you're basically doubling the amount of time it takes for you to shotgun someone to death, which I'm totally fine with. Mm-hmm. And I like that the Ogden sort of pushes Morphling in a different direction. The HOTS reference, Heroes of the Storm reference, is for a hero called Abathur. In that game, you have heroic abilities instead of ultimates, and one of them is basically this, where you make a copy of an ally, you get their non-heroic abilities. In that game, I feel like it's almost not as big of a deal. There are some pretty big abilities, but I feel like the implication for this is actually a lot bigger in Dota because of just the way that spells differ between the two games, and I think there is a lot more potential for more dramatic spell replicating in this game. I mean, even if you just go like, oh, well, we want another crowd control, so I'm going to copy a Shadow Shaman, and we have another core on the team, so he's going to be the one to do all the damage. Even if you're in a really bad spot and you need to just copy somebody and blink out. The big thing about this for me is this is a hero that's already notorious for being super escapable. Now has another way to sort of deal with that, and by vanishing into the guise of another hero. And even if it's another damage dealer, well, I mean, you transfer your stats. So, if there's somebody that guarantees from that benefits from the way that you had your stats set up, that is going to be an even greater benefit.
Yeah, and I mean, I was just talking about how he's kind of changed a lot. I mean, he would still get picked up as that one or even possibly two, but most likely a one role. But then he's been in that offlane a lot too. And I could see an offlane Morphling going Oghanims. Because like you said, you have this other core. You have that one role still on your team. Now let's make a replicate of him. Now you got 2 Lifestealers. You've got 2 anti-mages for 20 seconds. You've got these 2 heavy right-clickers that can go into the fight, deal tons of damage, and even if your illusion gets, or your replicate, or God, what the hell, hybrid, I don't know that word. If your hybrid even gets blown up, here you are at your full health and mana to start the fight again, and now you have your own ability. So it's like, it's actually a really cool dynamic that I think if you do get these offlane Morphlings, it could totally be something that they get way earlier than you would see that one Morphling go. Because I still think that one Morphling at the end of the day wants that shotgun. He's going to be the threat for his team. He needs to dish out a lot of damage. Oghanims is not going to make you dish out a ton of damage. It's going to give you more versatility. It's going to change kind of how you do the fights. But I think he's still going to E-Blade. But the support, this offlane Morphling, I absolutely could see this item kind of getting picked up. Kind of like a support Alchemist compared to a one Alchemist. One Alchemist is probably not going to get that Oghanims until way late in the game where he doesn't need items himself. But, that support Alchemist, he's going to get that Oghanim. So it's kind of a similar dynamic, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those here that benefits from Oghanims more than others because of his ability to swap his stats around. Mm-hmm. So maybe one of the more obvious points to make, but I mean the fact that you can sort of, still transition out more strength basically if you wanted to, because you're going to get health from just the point booster component. So I think this one's really interesting. I'd love to see some play with it. This is another one of those changes that is, I think, just super interesting and is really going to add to the potential OMG WTF plays that could come out. And this is another one too where like, okay, you take a disruptor, so now you have a second kinetic wall. There are just a lot of really crazy, awesome, even basic abilities on heroes, and to see 2 of them in one game, there are going to be some nuts moments because of it. I can guarantee it. Naga Siren, snare cooldown from 14 to 12, and snare is now dispellable. So yay for Diffusal Blade. And for any other items that might...
Ooh, come about.
Ensnare is no longer removed if the target becomes ethereal. Cool. Added Aghanim Scepter upgrade. Song of the Siren Scepter now regenerates you and nearby allies by 6% of your maximum HP per second for up to 7 seconds.
Once again, support Naga Siren or an Aghanims to help a support role, in my opinion. I mean, to get that on your one Naga Siren seems very, against the idea of what you're going to do with that hero. But an awesome upgrade. And once again, like I was saying, I'm not going to say Dimension anymore. I'm done saying that. But the point is it's changing the dynamic of how the hero works if you choose to go that path. Yeah, I don't know how many of these 4 or 5 Naga Sirens are going to be able to afford Naganims very often, but if you can get that way, that's a huge, huge boon to your team. Not only are you now going to prevent a fight or initiate, but now you're going to heal up your whole team for almost half their health if they're missing it. So I think a really nice thing, and actually this reminds me of, I was telling you the other day about a slasher build. He played Faceless Void and played the Mechanism, and I think he called it Mechanism and 28 Healing Salve build. Essentially, he just rushed into that mech and just kept buying healing salves all game. Just had probably 10 to 15 on him at all times. And what he would do is pretty much counter-initiate. He would freeze his allies, the enemies, and he would mech, and then healing salve his whole team. So they would just be healing up while they're in the Chronosphere, which is a little weird way to think of that hero. But yet, it was a slasher build, so there you are. And this kind of reminds me in a similar fashion, hold up, pause the fight. We're gonna take a break, and I'm gonna heal my team, and then we're gonna continue this in a second. I mean, do you like that choice there for the Aghanims?
I think it's neat. I mean, it winds up being a third of your health, right? 6 times 7. So a little bit more than the third, but
42 to be exact.
Yeah. What if you take your Naga Siren and you say, I'm not the only important core in this game, and you say, we are interested in big team fights, not me ratting the enemy team by throwing illusions into the base. I'm still going to get tanky off this. I'm going to get some agility where I wouldn't if I just went heart instead. So, instead of just getting the heart for my illusions and, to give me the regeneration, why not go an Aghanim Scepter and ensure that I can save the other core on my team or another support? I think that's kind of a viable idea.
They did nerf illusion damage to buildings, if you recall, in that patch kind of recently. So, No, I mean, it would be down the road, I would think, but it could be on a 1. But I would absolutely see that a lot more, I think, as a 4 item. And hey, put Alchemist on every single team. He's giving everyone an Aghanims, okay? Everyone gets a buff, all right?
Yeah.
He's going to farm all game, but he'll do it.
Yeah. I think you could swap this for maybe the heart, and that might be where you see the if you were to build it on a core Naga, that's where you'd see the trade.
Yeah.
I forgot this hero was in the game, but Nature's Prophet Sprout cast range increased from 600 to 625, so increased to rank 1, all the way up to 850. Sprout duration goes from 3 up to 5.2 to 3 to 6, so a little bit longer by the end of the day. Nature's Call Treant base damage from 22 to 28, and Aghanim Scepter upgraded Wrath of Nature now spawns a Nature's Call Treant whenever it kills a unit. Killing a hero will spawn a stronger Treant that has 3 times the damage and 3 times the health of a normal one.
Big tree.
He does speak for the trees, doesn't he?
He does. He commands them very well. And you know what? This doesn't change anything. I'm sorry. This keeps him as... I don't even know how much I even like that, to be honest. I guess it's nice. You come in a lane, you ensure that maybe the ones in your lane are going to be the ones that die. So you get a bunch more treants in your lane and you push with it. They do more damage. That's nice. But, I mean, do you really see a huge benefit from these changes to this hero that would bring them back in any way?
Not particularly. I think it's neat. I mean, the things that I think are for bringing him back, again, I think the meta is going to be pushing us towards heroes that can upset the balances in lane to try to get kills. And now, tower killing is going to be more important. As far as the Aghanims goes, and I don't know, I think there might be better options than some of the other items we're going to get to see in a bit. But, getting the increased base damage on the treants is actually kind of nice too, because if you're saying that creeps in the jungle are going to have less value to them, the fact that Nature's Prophet can kill them a little bit faster in comparison to other junglers might help us case a little bit. It is kind of cool too to see the sprout range is so dramatically increased. Still you can just tango through it, but I think he does get a little bit of gank potential there.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to definitely keep the speed going here through this. We're 2 hours into this part of it, so we shall continue, though. I'm just going to go on to Nyx Assassin.
Lurker Assassin, you said? Okay.
Lurker Assassin, exactly. Using Spike Carapace no longer removes Vendetta, which is actually kind of nice. But really, it's about this, once again, Aghanim Scepter upgrade, believe it or not. Adds a new ability, Burrow, with a 1-second cast time. While burrowed, he is invisible and unable to move or attack, but he does have a 40% damage resistance, damage across the board, and regenerates 1.5% of his health and mana per second. Nyx Assassin's abilities also have improved properties while burrowed. So Mana Burn and Impale have 50% increased cast range, which is very long. Impale cooldown is reduced from 13 to 9, and Spike Carapace instantly stuns any enemy units within a 300 area effect without requiring them to hit him first, or hurt him first, I should say. Casting Vendetta causes Burrow to end. So, yeah, Lurker Assassin. I love this for so many reasons. I really do. First of all, it gives you something beyond just like the Dagon, the Blink Dagger. Like, you actually have something that's going to really help you further into the game. I really like the regenerating 1.5% of health and mana per second while you're down there, because there's no cooldown on this Burrow. So you can simply go all out on the lane, use all your mana, nuke the crap out of them, and then just go around Burrow and regen up, and then be on your way again. I think it keeps the sustainability. It makes you, or it adds more depth to you. I like the Spike Carapace just stunning people around him. I mean, that's kind of hard to pull off, especially in a team fight. You're probably not going to have too many opportunities, or maybe I'm not thinking about it fully, but I feel like that's really more maybe springing the trap or having other methods about it. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's neat. I don't really know how I feel about what it could actually do. I mean, the spike travel distance or the cast range from Pale is 700, so we're looking at over 1,000 then for the range on that, and then we're looking at a 1,200 range on Mana Burn. So if you have Vision, then you could really burrow and spam the crap out of your abilities, and you're just going to regen the mana back. So it's an interesting way to look at Nyx Assassin, and this is almost... I mean, in Lurker fashion, a hero that might gain some ability to defend a tower structure because I have a mana burn that's on a 4-second cooldown when it gets to rank 4. It costs 100 mana, but I'm going to get to sit here and spam it because I'm getting 1.5% of my mana back per second. So it's a really particular case where this becomes useful, but it's kind of neat to have that option.
Absolutely. Omni Knight, no big deal. Oracle, I'm not sure how much you really... This is kind of like a Earth Spirit thing again, where this hero is just getting introduced, getting figured out. I think it's worth noting that the False Promise no longer makes the target invisible, but now continuously removes the debuff and disables instead of only when first cast. And then the False Promise cooldown went from 20 to 80 to 40. So they're obviously looking at this hero in a big way and trying to figure out how to balance her. But I think those were some definitely good steps in the right direction.
Yeah, the False Promise continuously removing debuffs and disables is kind of crazy as well. So the hero's getting some trades out of the massive increase to the cooldown, but no, like you said, it's kind of hard to gauge where this hero is going to wind up at, because I think you read these and you're just like, oh man, if this hero wasn't Captain's Mode, it would probably come out, because it does seem fairly dramatic. Maybe that's a little bit of an overstatement, but I'm really curious to see, again, just like we were talking about earlier, what it takes for this hero to come to Captain's Mode.
OD, so the Aghanim's upgrade now affects everyone in the area with astral imprisonment after it deals its damage. It no longer always triggers the mana drain and does not increase the damage multiplier. So, just in layman's terms, you cast this upgraded Eclipse on people. Right after it does the damage, it will then cast your astral imprisonment, whatever rank that is, on them, which I hope by the time you've been Aghanim's is level 4, but I don't know how you play your ODs. So, actually, a really cool change to it, in my opinion. Once again, I think they're kind of shunning away from your the Aghanim's is just making it better. That's all it's doing. This is saying, hey, it's adding another dimension to it. Oh my god, I said that word too many times. Just start slapping me. But it does. It adds a little depth. So now you could use it also as kind of